Tiffany Weck and Jeremy Shelton. Both are here via Zoom, and this is the date and time set for hearing in this matter. Ms. Weck had filed a motion. It was originally set for a week ago, but rescheduled for today, a motion regarding parenting time. Right. And ma'am, you filed this motion. What are you requesting today and why?
I'm requesting 4 different things. The first thing that is on the motion is that part of our order states that Jeremy shall not consume any alcohol during parenting time, nor for 24 hours prior to any parenting time, that he shall submit to a preliminary breathalyzer at my request and at parenting time exchanges, and at any time I can request an alcohol testing at my own expense. On 4/27, he called the kids at 7 p.m., which was the night before he was supposed to have the girls. He was very intoxicated, and I requested via our parenting wizard, our family wizard, asking to use my right to breathalyze him. He told me that it was no longer in the order, that his attorney had told him that. I'm just asking the court to, kind of emphasize that that is still in the order and that I can use my right to breathalyze him, and asking the court how it's enforced in terms of ensuring that he's not drinking 24 hours prior to having the girls. The next part of my parenting time order I'm asking to be changed is he's allowing the girls to watch inappropriate movies. My 4-year-old, she was 3 at that point, proceeded to tell our daycare provider and her friends at daycare that she had watched Cocaine Bear. The title alone indicates that it's pretty not for young eyes. So I went home and investigated a little, and Cocaine Bear is even worse than I had expected. I reached out to Jeremy to ask if they had watched it, and he replied that Madeline hadn't watched it. She'd only seen a piece of it and kept asking to watch it. When I picked the girls up that afternoon after school, I asked if they had watched it, and our 6-year-old proceeded to tell me that they had it. She had in fact watched it, and that she described a scene from the movie as being very scary. I'm asking that, we put in the order that appropriate content, whether it's movies, TV shows, music, or video games. I know we both don't do a lot of video games, but just be age appropriate. The next thing I want to talk about is introduction of multiple women. Either indirectly or directly. My girls can describe women that they've never met. They know their professions, they know where they live, they know what they look like. There's also been multiple women that are in and out of their lives. Not that I don't want Jeremy to be dating. I hope that he moves on and finds happiness, but introduction of multiple women is getting a little excessive. At the end of March, they met someone named Tracy, and my 6-year-old described where she had tattoos, and before she even met her. And then not even 2 weeks later, another woman was in the house that Wednesday named JoJo, and was making them dinner. So within a short time frame, they've met multiple women. And then via the parenting time app for our family wizard, Jeremy let me know that the girls had spent 16 hours with this woman named JoJo, and that he was now moving her into the house. I find that very, very fast. And my girls had not spent enough time to know if this woman would be a good role model. So I'm asking that the court, put something in writing that unrelated overnight guests should not be, or any unrelated guests should not be staying overnight for a certain period of time until we know that the relationship is long-term. The next thing is Jeremy's not doing their homework. When they go to their house or his house on the weekends, they'll come to me on Sunday night, and I'm automatically get into their bedtime routine. We do baths and get ready for bed. And then the next morning, my 6-year-old says to me, well, I didn't do my homework. So when I reach out to Jeremy, he says, well, I asked them and they said no. Just kind of emphasize we should be doing our homework. Whoever has the children directly after school. I understand that we want to teach them accountability, but we also need to be accountable as parents. So just ensure that their homework is done. The next one is proper hygiene and return of clothing. Jeremy gets them Wednesday nights for dinner, and then he'll get them over the weekend. So they're coming directly to him most of the time from either daycare or school. When he returns them, especially on Wednesday nights, they've got food on their face, their hair's a mess. One night in particular, my 4-year-old arrived with burrs in her hair, like burdock, those sticky things that stick to everything. It was in a ball, and it took me 45 minutes of her screaming and using conditioner to get it out of her hair. Just some, proper hygiene, returning to me. And then return of clothing. I'll send them with certain clothing and they'll come back with improper size clothing or not my clothing at all. And I send them with nice clothing. One instance, we were at basketball and I sent her with our 4-year-old with a brand new winter coat. And she came back with a size 24-month too small coat. I don't know why, but I had to ask for it back. And then extracurricular activities. I like my girls to be in as many activities as is logistically possible. I think it creates well-rounded children. But every extracurricular activity that they want to be involved in, I evaluate, is it going to affect any parenting time on his? Is it going to affect, the cost? What is the cost? Is it something I know that they'll want to do long-term, or is it this is just for fun? And then I run that by Jeremy. Most of the time he agrees to it. He's even agreed to, in the parenting time app, to pay for part of it. And then I cover the cost of it. When I ask him if he's going to cover the cost of it, he'll say, that's what my child support is for. Well, that would be great. But right now there's no child support being paid. So I'm asking that we either enforce that we're paying child support or ask the court to, that he pays for 50% of these extracurricular activities, because I want my kids to be involved, but I shouldn't be carrying the financial burden if I'm not getting one or the other.
Let's do it this way. Ma'am, what order are you relying on when you say that Mr. Shelton shall not consume alcohol during or 24 hours prior to parenting time, and shall submit to breathalyzer test prior to parenting time or at any time that you direct?
That is from our original order from 2020. I believe the opinion from the judge came in March, and then it was officially signed by the judge and our attorneys in May of 2020. Okay.
And that's never been modified or vacated or anything like that?
No, it has not.
All right. So, sir, what's your response to the motion as it relates to that issue alone at this point?
That issue there, I was not intoxicated. Mrs. Wack asked me to go out to my truck and blow. I'd left my house with my girlfriend. Mrs. Wack asked me to go back to my truck and proceed to blow into my thing. I said, we had left. She said, well, then you're going to have to provide me with an address or go to a cop shop and blow for somebody or tell me where I can send an officer. We were on our way. My girlfriend lives in Hart. Well, she has a cabin in Hart. So I told her, I said, we sent her an address for where we were at. And I told her she wanted to send an officer, more than happy to send an officer. But it also says it's at her expense. I don't know where it's my expense where I have to run around all over God's creation trying to find someplace to appease her. It's kind of getting ridiculous in a sense where she's searching for so many things for me to have to try to jump through all these hoops for her.
All right, but does the order allow it?
Does it allows her to? Yes, at her expense.
Okay.
She has it at parenting time, but prior to pick up or drop off, or at her expense, she could ask for it, and she could come to my house and ask me to blow into it at her time.
All right. On her so, ma'am, when did this incident that you referred to? What was the date of that incident?
April 27th. I just want to also note that.
Hold on, just answer the questions at this point. April 27th, 2023. At what time?
It was just after 7 p.m. He had called at 7 p.m. and he told me at 7:10 that he was not home.
All right, and the kids were with him at that time?
They were with me. It was 24 hours prior to his parenting time.
So he was supposed to start the next day?
Yeah, at 3 o'clock. Well, he typically picks Madeline up at 7:45 a.m. So it would have been 12 hours prior, just over 12 hours.
No, I told you I couldn't pick Maddie up that morning because I wasn't going to be there in time.
You let me know that the day of at 6:17, on the 28th, you let me know at 6 o'clock in the morning that you weren't going to make it. On the 27th, you did not indicate that at all.
Well, I think I did when we were talking on the phone or FaceTiming, but okay.
Right. Well, I think you both agree that language is still in the order. Ms. Weck just wanted that emphasized. So whatever the order says regarding that, if it's not been vacated or changed, you got to comply with it.
But I don't see where it's at her expense. So I'm supposed to run and go to a cop shop at that point?
I don't know if they'll charge you. How do you know if they're going to charge you or not?
Huh?
Do they charge you or can you even just walk into a police station and say, I'm going to go into a...
Charge you $4 every time. I used to have to do it when I went through sobriety court. Mrs.
No, neither of you have asked to change that at this time. So she just wants it emphasized. So whatever the order says, the two of you have to comply with it. Sir, what about this issue with your young children watching a rated R movie?
Sir, and I had this conversation with Mrs. Weck. My kids did not watch it. My brother, and I got my nephew here if you want to swear him in, because he was right.
I hear from you right now.
Okay. My nephew and my brother were here watching it. My kids and I were all outside playing basketball, and my youngest one and my second oldest one, they don't play basketball that much. My oldest daughter had her friend over, and we were playing basketball. They kept coming in. Every time they came in, they would pause the movie, but they would catch pieces of it. And they would pause the movie and tell them, no, you guys can't be watching. They'd wait till they left, and then they'd turn it back on and start watching. I have, to this day, I've never seen the movie. I've heard it was dumb. Pieces that I did see of it, it was very inappropriate for my kids, and I would never let them watch that. I won't let my kids watch inappropriate shows on TV. Okay. When they're watching, they got Google Play, and they got all the movies and kids shows, and everything is all set up for them. And they know.
That's all right. That's what I want to hear. So you're not opposed to the entry of an order stating that your kids won't watch movies, TV shows, listen to music, or play video games that is rated for a level above their age?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, good. How about the issue that Ms. Weck brought up about you introducing the children to multiple women who are significant others?
Nope, that is far, far from false. My girls have met two women. One, and at this point here, and I want to emphasize this too, Mrs. Weck, the minute she finds out, and I got letters here written from these women, Mrs. Weck will contact them and pretty much harass them in a sense, saying that, well, I'm their biological mother. I am the guardian. I'm the co-parent. I'm the only parent that has anything to. I'm feeling frustrated. She's the. Man. It all falls on her. She makes all the choices, everything that goes down with the kids. That she's their primary parent. Sorry, and that she needs to know them. She needs to meet them. At this point, sir, yes, these two women, one that is living with me, are involved in my life, but I'm not saying they're going to be there forever. And getting them to meet my kids to make sure there's a kind of a bond with them to see if they're going to work with my kids. If they're not going to be good with my kids, they're gone. I'm not going to be with somebody who can't be with my kids. The first person
you got to understand though, kids get attached relatively quickly, and if the two of you decide not to continue your relationship, then the kids have gotten attached to someone, and then all of a sudden she's out of the picture. They feel a sense of loss. So I'm not going to put anything in the order that prohibits. Sometimes those provisions are put in orders when divorces are pending or for short periods of time thereafter. But this is a 4-year-old, well, it's not even a divorce. This is a 4-year-old case anyway. And so the two of you presumably have been apart for 4 years or more. And the Court of Appeals, there's a case, and I read it years ago, and I can't remember the site right now, but the Court of Appeals basically said that both parents have the absolute duty to protect their children from abuse and neglect during time that the children are in their care. And if exposing them to a person brings that into question because of that person's propensities for, violence or drug abuse or criminality or things like that, then that's to be scrutinized by the court. But the court's not to really scrutinize parents and their romantic relationships absent any of those other things. So I'll just caution you that kids get attached quickly, and you need to be cognizant of that when you're introducing them to people. But I'm not going to put language in a 4-year-old in an order in a 4-year-old case prohibiting you from having the kids around your significant others. Do you have a problem with making sure that the homework is done when the kids are in your care after school?
Sure, I get the girls after school, and I grab them and I ask them for their homework. I'll look at their bags. Most of the time they do get their homework done. Mrs. Weck is bringing up a very few issues that actually have been brought up. I have them for 4 hours. By the time they get here from school, I got them until 7 o'clock. I'm enjoying almost every second that I have with my kids at this moment in time. And yes, homework is important, and I agree. But at 7 o'clock, there's still a little bit of time for her to actually look at it if it needs to be. I'm not opposed to helping them with their homework or making it getting it done. It's just that when they get here, they're excited to be on the trampoline and be with me and have fun and do the things that they didn't get to see or me for over a week. So in some cases, for over a week.
Are we just talking Wednesdays for this issue?
Yes, that's what she's talking about are on Wednesdays.
Okay.
On Sunday, they've got time to look through their books, and I have. There is not any time. Yes, there was one time my daughter missed homework. I asked them if they had homework, and they said no. Yes, Mrs. Weck is right. I should have probably looked at it, but in this case, I'm enjoying my time, the very little minimal time I have with my kids. So Mrs. Weck does have them pretty much all the time. So I don't understand how maybe missing a homework day here or there is going to be the end of the world, or we got to put it into some kind of writing that if the homework's not done there, because she'll have, if the kids do it again, we'll be back in court tomorrow.
Well, I agree with you there. It shouldn't have to be in writing. The two of you should be able to figure these issues out. But if you can't, the board has to get involved. And I don't want you to sit here and think that you only get to be the fun parent and she's got to do all the homework. You should have some responsibility in that. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that you do have less time and you want to enjoy the time you have. And maybe homework is enjoyable, maybe it's not. But I think for certain, if you've got them for a full weekend, you should set some time aside during that weekend to get the homework done, so they're not coming home on a Sunday night having to get that done. On a Wednesday, if you got them for 3 or 4 hours, if it's a big thing that has to be done, you should probably be working on it. If it's something that can be done relatively quickly once they get home, then maybe it's not that big a deal. It's kind of it's kind of hard to legislate that or put an order in effect, because it's going to be different. If it's one sheet of paper, identify these 8 colors, and then you're done. You should be able to get that done. But if it's something like a book report, then that takes a little more time.
I do. I do these things. And Mrs. Weck would actually just take some of the time instead of focusing and putting all this stuff into court and take a little bit of time and actually communicate with me and actually take a little bit of what we're talking about here. I'm not going to be perfect. I'm not making all the right decisions at every moment in time, but every decision I'm making, I'm doing it for the best of my kids. I'm there for my kids. I want them to be happy. I don't want them to be worrying about, there's one incident, Mrs. Weck told me that I needed to blow into my pickup truck. And I said, no, that order was over prior to parenting time. She said, no, it wasn't. I said, yes, it was. And it actually was. Mrs. Weck then proceeded to say, well, when are you going to pay child support? And she said, go on FaceTime with me with my kids in the back. And she said, I said, I'm trying to get my best to get child support. And sir, I am still to this moment right now. I'm closing possibly on Tuesday. I will have I remortgaged my home. I'm getting caught up on everything. I just got a few more tax papers I got to figure out, and I'm closing. But Mrs. Weck then proceeded to tell me that I said, they're going to put me in jail for this if you keep pushing this the way you are. And she goes, yes, I know. And I would love it. My kids were right there and they heard it. They started crying, asking me, and I FaceTimed her right back and she wouldn't answer. I said, look what you did. My kids are crying because now mommy's putting daddy in jail. And that's the stuff that she does. She does it all the time. She's going to use this as a tool every single time. These items that she is bringing up is something that 2 parents should be able to sit down, talk about, and resolve them without doing it like this.
I agree. So what about, she just said the kids come back, a lot of times they're filthy and dirty. Is that?
No, sir. My kids on Wednesdays, we eat dinner. Okay. So I get them home at 4 o'clock. By the time they get home, we get home at 4. I start dinner. They go outside and start playing. Mrs. Weck knows my pasture by the creek is full of these burdocks. But on that particular day that she's bringing up, we all went for a walk looking for rocks, and we lost track of time. Nobody had a phone. We lost track of time. So I was rushing to get back to the house because I knew it was getting close to if I'm late, Mrs. Weck's going to have it wrote down and she's going to make sure that I'm in the court for it. So I rushed back up to the truck and I realized, well, we had a few more minutes, but we jumped in. We were all in the truck anyway. And I took off down to the McDonald's to meet with them. Prior to getting my daughter out, I noticed she had a big thing, a wad of burdocks. I said, I'm sorry. I didn't notice it. We were rushing into the vehicle and I didn't see them. Most of the days that Maddie comes here in the mornings, she takes at least 1 or 2 baths while she's here because she just loves to take baths. And my kids is my oldest daughter, my 8-year-old, or my going to be 9-year-old, she takes showers almost every time she comes here 2 or 3 times a day. And they swip out clothes like I have more laundry than anything when those girls are here because they switch clothes out constantly. So when we're eating dinner at 5, 6 o'clock, trying to get homework done, trying to actually have a little bit of parenting time with my kids. Yeah, they might come with a little bit of ketchup on their face because they had their hamburger and I rushed them into the vehicle. It happens. Mrs. Weck has delivered me the kids in pajamas. She's actually taken them to daycare in pajamas and dropped them off in pajamas and left them in pajamas all day long.
All right. What about the extracurricular activities?
Extracurricular activities. Oh, sir, I told her I would happy to do these things. At this moment in time, her asking me to pay for something, I'm struggling. And I've actually Snapchat or sent Mrs. Weck a picture of my bank account where it's actually negative in there when she's asking for this money. I'm actually $47 negative in my checking account. And she's asking for money.
All right. At this time, I've heard both sides. These aren't, well, anyway, the alcohol, there isn't really a request to change anything in the order as far as that's concerned. So I'll just emphasize to the parties, they have to follow the language that's in the most current order as it relates to the breathalyzer and the being intoxicated or consuming alcohol prior to parenting time. The parties are both in agreement that the kids won't watch any movies or TV shows or play any video games or listen to any music that's rated for an age above their age. So I'll put that language in the order. The significant others, I'm not going to prohibit or restrict that. I'm just cautioning both parents that kids get attached quickly to the new boyfriend or the new girlfriend or whatever, and you need to be cognizant of that when you're introducing them to your kids. The homework, again, like I said, it's hard because homework comes in many different shapes and sizes, and there should be some responsibility on both parents to make sure that the homework is done. It shouldn't be all on mom to do it when the kids come home at 7 or 8 o'clock, because I'm assuming they have to get to bed shortly thereafter. So certainly on the weekends, the homework needs to be addressed in dad's house. The Wednesdays, I guess it should at least be looked at if it's going to take an amount of time that would keep the kids up late when they get home. Probably need to get some or most of it done. Kids get dirty. They're going to have to bathe. I'm not really going to take any action on that. The clothing, each of you should return the clothing to the other parent at the end of your parenting time. That the people get possessive over the clothes they buy their kids. So if mom sends the kids in some clothes, you got to make sure, sir, that she gets those clothes back. Likewise, if the kids come to your house, ma'am, with clothes that dad has provided, you need to make sure he gets them back.
Actually, most times shoes that I've actually sent there and the dogs have chewed up, and I get back, I go buy new shoes. Her dogs chew up all the shoes. I bought brand new boots for my kids, and they go there, snow boots, they were chewed up within days. Mrs. Weck doesn't return any of the items that my kids go there with. I just like to emphasize that she's got to do the same. She's actually still has a phone of mine that she took from one of my kids, and she's also got an internet box that she took from my house. These are items that Mrs. Weck has not returned that I've asked for numerous times.
All right. So, and then we're left with the issue of the extracurriculars. It doesn't sound like either of you are opposed to the kids being signed up for stuff. It's more how it's going to be paid for. And, when I first look at it, Mr. Shelton has a pretty significant support obligation, and that should be able to be utilized to cover the sign-up fees and things like that for a couple extracurricular activities. However, so you're not paying that every month in the ordered amount, so that makes it difficult for her to count on it to be able to utilize it to use for sign-up fees and things like that. So I guess I'm kind of leaning her way on that if you're not paying the support on time when it's ordered, this wasn't specifically about support, but the point that if she's not getting the money that you're ordered to pay or not getting all of it, then it makes it hard for her to be able to sign the kids up for things. And I appreciate that she says that she tries to do it so that it won't materially affect your parenting time, even though you guys live pretty close together and you can certainly go to all the stuff, practices and games and coach the teams and do whatever you want to do if the kids are signed up.
I agree. But the thing is, sir, Mrs. Weck, that my child support payment came at the worst time it could possibly ever come. I was pretty close to being paid up to the day that this was signed. And then it almost doubled from the time that what I was paying. I've been struggling myself to get these things done. I've communicated this with Mrs. Weck. I am doing my best to get my work. My work is not the busiest right now. Mrs. Weck knows this from the 10 years we were together. She knows that I'm not busy this time of the year, and my summertime and fall are my best times where I've actually make my income. So her asking me for all these things, she knows when my money starts coming in. She's did my books for 10 years. She knows that I'm slow this time of the year. So her emphasizing all this and pointing all this out. Oh, and I'd like to also note that Mrs. Weck also bashed me on Facebook.
I don't care about that. People write stuff on Facebook all the time. All right. As far as the extracurriculars goes, Mom will cover the sign up and things that go along with signing the kids up. If there are excessive equipment costs or costs for gear and things like that, that'll be split 50-50. All right. Is there anything else for today?
I just got to ask one more question. So the it's consuming of alcohol 24 now, I don't understand, I guess, the way it's worded. Do I have to drop whatever I'm doing, go find a cop or go find a place to do whenever Mrs. Weck asked me to do this?
So unfortunately, because this is a 4-year-old case, when they pull my files, they pulled file number 2. So file number 1 is probably sitting somewhere. It's probably a few inches thick, and they create a second file when the first file folder fills up. They only pull the most recent one for me, so I don't have that language in front of me. If one of you has it and you can read it to me, I can give you my assessment.
I can read it here. The defendant shall not consume alcohol during parenting time nor for 24 hours prior to parenting time. Defendant shall submit to a preliminary breathalyzer test at the plaintiff's request at parenting time exchanges, and plaintiffs may at any time request an alcohol test at her own expense.
And that's the total language of the paragraph?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Weck, I'm sure has it.
So I guess that gives her the right to request at any time, but it would have to be somehow the payment for that would have to be managed by her prior to your requirement to then test. Because if it clearly states that it's at her expense, then that doesn't say anything about you fronting the cost and her reimbursing you. She has to pay for it, have it set up, and then you, I guess, got to be there. Okay. At any time is pretty wide open. That's and I'm just giving you my assessment of a prior order. So.
Yep.
All right. Okay. We should be all set. You'll get an order in the mail with the things that we've outlined for today. All right.
Thanks.
Okay. And this is the matter of Katie Campbell and Caleb Robinson. Both are here via Zoom. Mr. Higgs is here representing the plaintiff. And this is a date and time set for hearing in this matter on the plaintiff's motion. Looks like you filed the motion by yourself. All right. And I guess she filed this on her own, but then Mr. Higgs, she must have hired you. What do you want to present as far as your client's motion today?
Helping her prepare a motion. I'm assuming what she filed is close to what we were filing. So the main thing here is that her husband, Garrett, has always been in the home and always with these children, has helped raise these children. The judge, when reviewing the objection to the prior custody order that you entered, denied the objection, but then he altered your order in a way that basically prevents her husband from being in the home with her and the children. We were seeking to see if we have the power to move him back into the home. Basically, what the judge did is that there was a concern about a grandfather being around the children. And when he read into that, he read in there that no one with any CSC convictions can be around the children, is what he put into his order. Garrett, her husband, has a CSC conviction in his past and has been around the children the whole time. And it was a significant alteration of, the objection was denied, but it was a significant alteration of the original order. So we're trying to get that so her family can be reunited. He's obeyed the order and been out of the home.
All right. She had some other stuff in her motion, but all that's being pursued today is the issue with.
Let me look, see what else I have. What else is in your motion, Katie?
The monster truck show with Christopher, the no contact order.
Okay, yeah, I had a separate show cause. We're doing as a separate motion that was basically that there's a no contact order and the father's disobeying that no contact order and having the children around the stepbrother. They're not supposed to be around. I do have that. I'll just separate these into two separate motions. But that one's more of a show cause than it is a motion to modify. I didn't realize you put that all into one motion.
All right.
Those are the two things I had.
Well, I mean, it says she's asking the court to order a change of circumstances and speak to the children. Change as it relates to the registered sex offender with her husband.
And Courtney in counseling.
Caleb's broken the no contact with Christopher. Courtney was taken out of counseling. Chloe has rashes because of her allergy to milk. Chloe was caught stealing food. They don't have enough food to eat or something. So there are a few things in there. I don't know.
Yeah.
You want to talk to your client before
we probably could talk.
All right, let's do that. All right, we're back. Mr. Higgs, anything else you want to address other than those two issues?
I think the main issue here today is the first one I brought up, getting Garrett, the husband, back into the house. He hasn't been a threat to these kids and has been with them, helping raise them this whole time. And I don't know that the prior order to remove the stepfather from the house. The other one is really just a show cause, and I'm going to encourage her just to, unless you think we should deal with it on this issue, that she file it as a show cause if the child's around the child against the order. I don't know that it should be an motion to change custody. I don't think that I've talked with her. I don't think we have the type of evidence to prove that there's a change of circumstance to redo the custody motion right now. Her priority really is to get Garrett back in the house.
All right. So Mr. Robinson, do you have any objection to Garrett, I guess, being allowed around the children at this time?
I've had an objection from the beginning. I had never had any luck getting that situation figured out. I was told that it was never an issue up until current. Although I accepted Katie that I could show that since 2013, when I found out when I found out that Garrett was a registered sex offender, I have made several attempts through the years to get him out of the home with my children. Even aside from the aspect of Garrett potentially being a risk to the kids, Katie in the past has more than showed that she's not able nor willing to follow a court order. So placing that order in has already been broken on 2 occasions. And that was verified through text from her admitting that the kids were around Garrett. I don't think that asking for him to be home if she can't even follow an order for a maximum of 2 months is a proper, situation.
All right. She's disappeared. I don't know why, but I guess I'm having trouble hearing all 3 of you on some occasions. I could hear most of what Mr. Robinson said and most of what Mr. Higgs said, but not all of it. All right. So you want the order to remain in place that prohibits the kids from having contact with any sex offender? I
do. I feel like at this point in time, with the situations the children have been in, with the accusations on both ends that have been placed, there's seems to be a high need to protect them from those situations. If they've already been exposed to those situations, I don't feel like putting them in the home with a registered sex offender would be protecting them to the best of our parental abilities. I don't feel like it's something they need to be around emotionally. I don't feel like it's something they need to be around as far as the risk factor goes. I don't know. I feel like the judge put that in place for a reason. And without asking him, why he entered it in the order that way, I guess I don't see a cause to change it.
All right. What's your understanding of when the relationship between the 2 began?
To be honest, I don't know. I know that they got together, started dating shortly after we got divorced, possibly prior to our divorce. Aside from that, I haven't really kept track of her social and personal life.
Well, okay.
I guess I just feel like there's a lot of question marks. I know Garrett's charges have been brought up in previous hearings by you. One specifically was put to recess for a further date to discuss the details of his charges, and they were never discussed further because he didn't end up showing at the next hearing. So it's still a question mark as to why he has 2 CSCs, and until that's at least explained, I don't feel like frugally throwing him back into the children's life is a good choice at the moment.
All right. Mr. Higgs, anything else you want me to consider regarding that issue?
We need to consider specifically that Caleb himself, even though it was when he was younger, also has past CSC violations. He's not currently on the registry because they happened when he was younger, but the risk is just as bad with Caleb and Caleb's house as it is with Garrett. All that there's been multiple hearings on this issue, and the stepfather, who's been in their lives from the very beginning, from when they were very young, has always been allowed to stay in the home. I don't think the judge intended to disrupt the children's lives in this big of a way where they can no longer have you know, a normal home relationship with the way it's been existing since the beginning of this case. I mean, this is a huge alteration in the life of these kids to not be around the stepfather that's been raising them the whole time. He's raised them more than Caleb has since the beginning.
I remember at one point we did take some testimony regarding the particulars of that offense that led to him being required to register.
That's correct. We took the testimony, and my client was thoroughly warned about having him in the house, but we left the order as is and allowed him to stay in the house because he's been there in these kids' lives since the beginning. So how many years has Garrett been in their lives?
Since 2013.
2013. I mean, 10 years. He's been there 10 years, and suddenly was ripped out of their lives 2 months ago.
And is he currently on probation or parole or anything?
No.
And Mr. Robinson, you don't recall when you became aware that Mr. Wessling was living in the home with your children?
I've been aware since late 2013. And
when did you become aware that he was on the sex offender registry?
Shortly after.
And when did you first make an issue with that?
Immediately. I mean, the day I found out, I walked over 12 miles to pretty much every local PD trying to figure out a way to remove him from my children's life. I brought it up in several court cases. I brought it up to several attorneys that we've hired. And that the issue's always been that he's not on probation or parole, so there wasn't legally anything I could do to get him removed from the home.
Well, yeah, that's not necessarily true. I do recall some testimony about him at one point. Sir, Ms. Campbell made an allegation that you had one or more of the children around Christopher Sutherland. You want to address that?
I'm more than willing to address that. I'd like to address all the issues in her motion today. I feel like, she made those allegations knowing that, she should have proof of those allegations. I feel like they should be addressed in the motion she filed.
All right. Well, she's made the allegation. What's your response?
My response is we have done everything within our power to keep our kids from being around Christopher and keep Christopher from being around our kids.
You know you have
seen each other is in past road in a vehicle. Excuse me, I'm talking, sir. I have roughly 3,000 hours of video footage that can attest to the fact that they have not been around Christopher. I have handwritten letters from a state official that can also verify that they have not been around Christopher. I have every intention on filing a court order, and I think we've done a very good job at proving that through the course of the years that I'm not willing to risk the future of my children over breaking something as simple as following a court directive.
All right. Mr. Higgs, what did you want to say?
I was just going to ask if he took Christopher and his son to the truck to the monster truck rally that he took them to. I mean, there were pictures online. There was all sorts of stuff of them there together. I mean, it seems to me he just committed perjury.
Please present these photos that show that Christopher was around my children.
I mean, they ended up deleted, but there was pictures on there of the three of them together there. We, I mean, if you're saying you weren't there, we need to talk to the court really does need to talk to your son about this because was not happy that he was there with Christopher and brought to the attention of his mom. We need to get these kids interviewed. They're being around Christopher and this guy's perjuring himself.
I welcome you to show me proof that you have that my kids have been around Christopher, and I will gladly show you the proof that they have not been around Christopher.
All right, and I do child interviews in the court. The law only allows child interviews for the purposes of establishing a preference regarding custody and parenting time after there's been a showing that there's proper cause or change in circumstances to revisit a custodial situation. I don't go on fact-finding missions to establish facts with kids. Now, sometimes they say things during the course of an interview to establish their presence or preference, and I don't necessarily just ignore it. But I guess it would be up to a witness to testify to verify that they saw the kids there together, or calling the child as a witness himself to verify that order was violated to establish that. But and certainly pictures, if they exist, could be introduced as exhibits. However, Mr. Higgs, when you say the court needs to interview, I don't just talk to kids and say, "Hey, what happened on June 13th?"
Can I
We'll have to call them as a witness.
What's
Which
that?
is why I really said the show cause should happen on another day, because I'll need to bring witnesses to show that it happened.
That's fine. Mr. Robinson, what were you going to say?
I just wanted to clarify, because I don't feel like having a perjury charge, that I'm not saying that I didn't go to Monster Jam, because me, Caden, and Brandon James Hussman, his other stepbrother, did go to Monster Jam. My kids have not been around Christopher. That is my testimony, and that is not perjury. Can I present a letter by chance on the topic of not feeding my children or allowing them the basic necessities?
Well, yeah, if we're dealing with everything here, let's see. We've dealt with the with Garrett. I'm thinking about that. We've dealt with Christopher to the extent that that was presented in the motion. What about counseling? Ma'am, was there an order that said that Courtney had to be in counseling?
Made to be in the order, but it was taken out in this last one, and I just don't think she was ready to be taken out of counseling.
Your order had counseling in there, and when the judge finished the objection, he did not include the counseling part of your order in his order.
All right. So
we're asking her to be put back in counseling.
Re-enrolled in counseling? Ma'am, you feel that Courtney should be re-enrolled in counseling?
I do.
All right. Why is that?
From Stanton, she was getting EDMR light treatment, and then she only had a few counseling sessions over there and then was taken off of it. I just feel like she probably needs somebody to talk to.
All right. Well, that's kind of vague. I mean, were there goals that she had with her counselor previously that were not met, or is she having ongoing mental health or psychological issues that need to be addressed through counseling? I mean, you can't just say I think she needs more. I mean, you got to give me a reason if you want the court to consider.
She's had a lot of trauma in the last year, and I feel like she should have counseling. She was diagnosed with PTSD in Stanton, and I feel like she probably needs help.
All right, Mr. Robinson, is Courtney currently in counseling?
No, she is not. It was a mutual decision between her current counselor and us to end treatment with the community support she had, with the fact that they offer a school counselor through the right door at Lakewood. So she has the availability to speak with people, and she knows that. She knows who they are. I have no objection in re-enrolling her. I do have transcripts from the right door that aren't quite ready to be picked up yet, but they do outline her evaluation, her assessment, the goals that were set and met by both counselors. And I do have a handwritten letter coming from Elizabeth Morgan, which was her original counselor, that kind of lay out, her aspect of the PTSD situation that Katie brings up with Montcalm County Care Network, and the fact that it wasn't labeled as PTSD.
All right, but I guess the bottom line is Mom wants her in counseling, and you said you're not opposed to re-enrolling her in counseling?
No, if she wants her in counseling and Courtney's okay with it, I mean, we can put her back in counseling.
All right.
I'm not sure. I guess we'll leave it up to the counselor to decide what the, I guess, reasoning for it will be, or what her treatment looks like.
All right. Well, I assume they'll start with an assessment. So I guess if you both agree, take her for the assessment. And then if the counselor says she doesn't need counseling, then I guess we go with that. But if the counselor says she needs to do X, Y, and Z and reach these goals, then follow those recommendations. Sound good?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So after assessment, schedule assessment, after assessment, follow recommendations.
Okay.
All right. How about the eczema, allergy to milk, things like that? Ma'am, we haven't heard about that yet. Why don't you tell me what led you to put that in the motion?
Because Chloe has rashes all over her legs and all over her, well, she did have it on her buttocks too. But she has an allergy to milk, and she's supposed to be drinking almond milk. She's not getting almond milk.
Okay. And how do you know that?
Well, I guess from what she says, she doesn't get almond milk.
All right. Sir, what do you know about the child's allergies to dairy milk?
So the only thing we've known about her allergies to dairy is what we've heard from Katie. They have been to the doctors. There's been no test given that has dictated she actually has an allergy to milk. She has had no visual rashes. She's had no reaction to dairy. I think the issue with that dairy situation was when she was with Katie, and she was allowed to drink milk nonstop all day, and she was allowed to eat as much ice cream as she wanted to. I think her body was fighting it off. We have had her on almond milk. We switched from almond milk to oat milk because she was getting constipated. And we have veered away from the oat milk back to dairy, which she has had no issues with. We don't give her a lot of milk. She has milk with cereal. She may have a small glass with dinner. But I mean, until our doctor says that she has an issue with milk, or, you know, I'm not just going to not allow her milk because Katie says she has an allergy. I guess maybe this is where the letter from prevention might help with that situation, because it's just, I think it's way off in left field with the allegations of eczema and rashes.
I didn't see any letter. I don't recall, but have you seen rashes from head to toe on her?
She has no rashes. When we took custody on Christmas, Chloe had said that she had a rash on her butt crack above her buttocks. So we did have it looked at by her family physician, and it was determined that it was bacterial from not wiping correctly. They gave her a topical steroid ointment, and within a week and a half, that was gone and hasn't come back. Aside from that, she has had no rashes. I mean, no breakouts, no eczema, no swelling, no issues medically.
All right, ma'am, what day did you notice her having a rash from head to toe?
She's had them for the last like 3 months.
What's this, every time you've seen her?
Yeah, they're on her ankles and on her legs.
Are they on visible spots, like you can see it when she's wearing clothing?
Yeah.
If you're talking from head to toe, then they're also on her torso and her arms and her fingers and her.
They're on. It's on her hands too. I'm telling you, Caleb. When she gets home tonight, look.
Can I screen share a letter from Naomi Miller with CPS prevention?
I don't know, Mr. Higgs.
No, I'm going to object to that. Hearsay.
I guess, did CPS look into that at one point?
I am enrolled voluntarily in CPS prevention, and we have been in this program for about 3 months, and she's at her house on a bi-weekly basis and sees the kids frequently. So I think hearsay is kind of out of the question on that. That's firsthand knowledge, you know.
Well, documents are inherently hearsay unless the person is there to verify the authenticity or the person who authored the document is available to testify, because Mr. Higgs
I'd be glad to get
Don't interrupt. Mr. Higgs can't cross-examine a document. And presumably, well, you know, they may be under oath when they create a document like that, but they haven't been sworn in by the court. So I'll put this in the order, since you're making an allegation about that, but there's no diagnosis. Either of you can have the child seen by an allergist, and again, need to follow any recommendations made by the allergist that come from that appointment. That can be one of the appointments where they just talk about stuff, or you know, maybe it'd be more important to have her tested for being allergic to certain things, and then some recommendations can be made. Ma'am, how long have you known that she had, or thought, I guess, that she had a sensitivity to dairy?
Last year we took her to DeVos Children's Hospital because she was having a hard time having bowel movements, and she suggested to try to take away dairy, and she also gave her a prescription for Senna medicine to help with her having a bowel movement, and we did that and it worked.
All right, that's different than rashes, though. I don't know.
Excuse me, Mr.
I'll get it checked out. What's that, sir?
My wife just contacted Naomi, and she is willing to verify the authenticity of that letter and take questions from Mr. Higgs.
All right. Who's Naomi?
She's CPS prevention state worker through Ione County.
Okay. I assume she's not right there in the room with you.
No, she's on the phone, but we can add her into the Zoom meeting.
All right. While she's doing that, what about caught stealing food at school? Chloe caught stealing food at school. Caden told me multiple times they don't get fed. Ma'am, what led you to put that in your motion?
Because Caden's playing baseball, and he had private messaged me one night stating that he wanted me to cook him some food the weekend that he came, because he had been running off Gatorade all day and hadn't eaten dinner or anything. So
you're talking about one time?
No, this is like all the time.
So he sent you that message all the time?
I mean, he tells me all the time. Wednesdays when I pick them up and take them out to eat, like that's all they want to do is eat.
How old is he?
He's 13, 12, and 9.
Okay. Sir, what about, do you have a problem with adequate food in your home?
I do not have a problem with adequate food in my home. I think the issue is the children have been accustomed to a certain diet through the years. So now that they're in a home with home cooked meals, we do make a lot of vegetables. We do make a lot of fresh meats. I don't think that they're used to it. So sometimes we do get a situation where they want to be picky or they don't want to eat what's made. And that's kind of a continuous battle because we're still running into an issue of, you know, fast food on a regular basis. I mean, they eat Chinese almost every Wednesday. And Courtney, on several occasions through school, has had to do a meal chart where she logs what she eats and when. And twice now it's happened to land on a weekend. She goes back to Katie's, and the things you see typically are candy, Debbie snacks, soda, chips. So the issue is not adequate food. The issue is not that they don't get fed. The issue is that they're not used to this diet. And it has been a struggle to kind of get them to understand that, you know, that we have to kind of move into eating healthier.
Right.
I mean, I've spent over $1,200 in the last 2 months on meat bundles from our local butcher. So,
all right, well, let's do this. I don't know if I've ever done this before. You're sitting in your kitchen. Why don't you open the fridge up? Let's see what you got.
$2 gallons of milk, 2 dozen eggs, fresh vegetables, fresh peppers. Condiments are kind of slim.
Here, right. This is all of our vegetables.
Fresh vegetables in the freezer. Hash browns, cauliflower, cheese, Hot Pockets. Cereal, almond oat crunch, baked goods, flour, sugar, boxed meals, kind of slim.
All right, thanks.
I'm gonna go ahead and show you the deep freezer too while we're at it.
All right. Ma'am, I think you got to admit they got plenty of food in the house. If
there's I would say about 100 pounds worth of pork, chicken, and beef.
The child chooses not to eat what he's being offered, you know, that's on him. He can't just expect to say, I'm not going to eat what you give me and I want something else, and then be able to complain about it and put it in motion. So, all right. Well, thank you, sir. Like I said, I don't think I've ever done that before, but I figured, hey, looks like he's sitting in his kitchen. So, yep. Naomi is on. Mr. Higgs, you want a chance to ask her some questions after Mr. Robinson does?
I mean, if he wants to present something.
All right. So as you can probably tell, I got Mr. Robinson and Ms. Campbell here, and Mr. Robinson had stated that he has an ongoing prevention case, I guess, for lack of a better term, and that you were the worker assigned to that case. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Your name is Naomi Miller, and you're with Department of Health and Human Services in what county?
Ionia County.
All right. How long have you been working with Mr. Robinson?
We had our first phone call January 10th of this year.
All right. How often do you see him or his family?
About every 2 weeks.
All right. And he had brought up a couple specific things I think that he wanted to address with you, and maybe a document that you had authored that he wanted to introduce. But before we get to that, have you had any issues with the amount of food or the nutrition for the children in Mr. Robinson's home?
No, I haven't had any concerns for that.
All right. And I guess, Mr. Robinson, what questions did you have for Ms. Miller?
I just want to verify, you know, some of the details in the letters that she presented. Is it true on 5/19 of 23 you wrote a recommendation, or I guess an observation of what you've seen in the home and the interactions you've had with the kids?
Yes, I wrote that letter.
Okay. Have you visibly seen Chloe on those visitation times that you're in the home doing, you know, the goal setting or talking about emotions and communication? You've physically seen Chloe?
Yes, I've seen her on 5 occasions.
Okay. Have you noticed at any point that she has any rashes on her face, her hands, her arms, her legs, or has she at any point said to you that, you know, her stomach hurts or she has issues going to the bathroom because she's had dairy or regular milk?
I haven't personally noticed any rashes or concerning marks on her. She hasn't talked to me about not feeling well, or anything like that.
Have you had any hygiene concerns in the time that you've spent in our home with the cleanliness of our home or the cleanliness of our kids?
The times I've been at your home, it's been organized. I haven't had any like sanitary concerns for the home. at every home visit where I've seen the children, which has been 5, the kids have appeared to be in clean and appropriate clothing for the weather. I hadn't noticed any concerns for their personal hygiene or body odors.
All right, I appreciate that. I'd be glad to screen share the letter, Mr. Paige, so that you can see the details of that.
All right, well, let's, Mr. Higgs, do you have any questions for Ms. Miller?
Sure. So how did you become involved with this family?
Yes, so Caleb had reached out to Ionia County DHHS, I believe the week before January 10th, and my supervisor had passed his voicemail along to me as he was reaching out for more support for his family.
And has anyone in the family, Caleb or anyone else, sought your assistance or discussed with you an attempt to get Christopher Sutherland back in the home and around these children, around the other children?
That has been discussed. I have encouraged the family to follow the no contact order, as it is not my role to encourage a family to go against a court order. So we had the family had created, before I was involved, a safety plan where the paths of the children and Christopher would not cross. So even if they're picking up Christopher to come back to the home, the vehicles wouldn't be passing on the same road when the kids are like on the bus to go, the other children are on the bus to go to school.
And is Christopher in the home routinely?
So it's my understanding that after Hayden, Courtney, and Chloe go to school, Christopher does come to Dawn and Caleb's home to use the Wi-Fi for schooling. As well as there on the weekends that Caden, Courtney, and Chloe are at Katie's home, and when Katie has parenting time on Wednesdays.
Have any of the children talked about going to events or anything with Christopher?
No, the kids haven't talked to me about anything like that. That's not the focus of why I'm in the home, though.
What are you focusing on in the home?
So we are focusing on communication between everybody in the family, as well as emotional regulation and coping skills, and also starting to work on like structure and routine within the home so that everybody is contributing to the overall like structure of the home, chores, those kinds of things.
And are you dealing directly with the children?
They are a part of many of the meetings. So normally I catch up with Caleb and or Dawn, depending on who's home at the time. If they're both home, then I talk with both of them. And then we bring the children into the meetings dependent on what's being discussed. So I have interacted with them about 5 times.
Is that how many times you've been in the home?
No, so they have had visits, I think 9 times since January. One of those visits was by a coworker while I was on leave. And then, so at some of the other visits, the other 2 visits I was there, the children were there, but I wasn't directly interacting with them, like the 5 visits that I have referenced.
And what were there any DHHS concerns that prompted offering these services, or legitimately just a random person calling out asking for services?
So it was just Caleb reaching out to my program to be qualified for prevention services. A family member has had to have had past DHHS contact or like a CPS investigation or allegations called against the family. But there was not a current investigation when I became involved with them.
And you do not do any of the investigations type of work? You're just doing this prevention work?
That's correct.
Have any of the children talked about counseling and they were taking out of counseling or anything of that nature?
So I believe Courtney was in counseling part of the time while I've been working with the family. I didn't talk to her directly about that because there is that privilege between a child and their therapist, since I do not do clinical work. It's my understanding that had ended. I was aware and have talked to Christopher's past therapist, but his has ended now as well. His has transferred to case management instead of home-based therapy.
And when you're saying you're meeting with the children, Christopher's not included in that?
So I meet with Christopher separately. So he is not at the home while I'm there because of the no contact order, and I don't want that to be broken on my behalf. So I will go to the home at a time that Kate and Courtney and Chloe are not there to see Christopher.
And what kind of issues were you working with Courtney on?
So I'm working with them really as a group. I don't do a lot of one-on-one work since I'm not clinically based. Or licensed to be working with children in like a therapeutic setting. So we have worked on emotion workbooks as well as family games, discussing emotions, building the family bond, and creating positive family experiences.
Are you working on that thing because you discovered that there are emotional problems in the home and that they weren't coping well? Is that why we're working on that? Or is it just something the parents wanted you to work on?
That was...
Why did we go?
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. So at the beginning, when I work with a family, I ask what their goals are and what they would like to work on. I do sometimes make suggestions, but Don and Caleb were both really clear that they would like to have more understanding of what the children are feeling and how to help them regulate with difficult emotions or situations that they might come upon.
In the discussions with the children, are the topics of their mother and their stepfather Garrett been brought up, or is it just things within Caleb's home?
So I do not talk with the children about anything in Katie's home. Caleb and Dawn have expressed some concern. There hasn't been anything brought up to me too much that hasn't been like already investigated by a CPS worker, and that's if there were outright safety concerns that they were discussing, that's what I would encourage them to file allegations with CPS.
I have nothing further.
Mr. Robinson, anything else for this witness?
I'd just like to give you an opportunity to read that letter. It may carry a little bit more weight maybe and touch on a couple of topics that weren't vocally discussed here in the meeting.
All right, Mr. Higgs, any objection to the letter now that Ms. Miller has been called to testify and has verified the contents of the letter?
I'm assuming we'd be able to develop foundation. I don't know that he's done that, and I would like to see the letter, but I mean, if you could get me a copy of the letter, I have no problem with you reading it if we can get a copy of it and verify it.
Can you email a copy to Mr. Higgs before I read it, Mr. Robinson?
Yeah, I can do that.
A screenshot of email. Hold on. All right, Mr. Higgs, you have a chance to read the letter?
Yes, I did. And as soon as I opened it, my whole computer locked up. So I opened it on my phone, and now I'm on my phone. My computer won't work.
All right. Did you have any other questions? Did you have any other questions for Ms. Miller based on the letter?
No, and I have no objections for being entered.
All right. Mr. Robinson, you can share that letter then when you get a chance. And Ms. Miller, I guess you're all set. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Very well. Thank you. Mr. Higgs, I guess, or Ms. Campbell, I think we've gone over all the things that were put in the motion. Was there anything else that we missed?
I think so.
No.
All right. So I didn't have an issue with the food. Looks like Mr. Robinson is taking care of any, he's cognizant anyway of any dietary needs on behalf of Chloe, and that the CPS worker hasn't noticed any rashes or anything, but either of you could have her seen by an allergist and need to follow any recommendations. Looks like you both agree that there would be an assessment done of Courtney and to determine if she needs any further counseling, and you follow the recommendations from that. There's no change in circumstances to consider changing custody. And I'll just consult with the judge and ask him if he realized that Mr. Wessling was a sex offender when he issued that order prohibiting sex offenders from being in the home. If his opinion was written in full cognizance of that, and he intended Mr. Wessling to be included, then I'm not going to make any changes based on that. If he was not aware of that, because his opinion doesn't specifically indicate that he was aware of that, but he may or may not have been. But if it turns out that he was not aware of that, then I would probably lift that restriction as it applies to Mr. Wessling, because that's been fully litigated, I think, in the past during previous custody motions that were raised. So anything else that hasn't been addressed that needs to be addressed today?
No.
Okay, you should be all set. You'll get an order in the mail in a few days.
Okay.